Hey guys, Positive here, and welcome back to WoT Blitz University. And today we're going to be continuing the series with another map guide. We're doing Mines today. I know Mines is also another unpopular map with people, which is why we're doing it. And just like the last video, we're going to be going over some basic positions, and then I'll show you guys the general rotations I like to make on Mines. So without further ado, let's get started. Something to understand about Mines is that Mines is an asymmetrical map. Unlike most maps in Blitz, the way you play Mines has massive differences depending on which side of the map you spawn on. So the north side primarily has an advantage when you're playing aggressively, because from the north spawn, you have the opportunity to make aggressive plays much better than you do on the south spawn. However, the way that it works, the south spawn is compensated for this by having much better defensive positions, much better TD spots from which to defend against the north spawn. Now let's start by talking about the TD positions that make south spawn such a primarily defensive side of Mines. And the first spot we're going to talk about is this one by this rock right here. So as pictured, this spot is really good when you're trying to defend against enemy tanks who have the hill. That's really its primary purpose. If someone peeks this rock or around the center hill, you can generally punish them for it, as you can see in the video. However, there are alternate spots for watching the hill. My personal favorite spot is right here on this kind of ledge, because from this ledge you can also defend against people who are pushing across the island. And then the other spot that really covers the center hill lane very well is this spot right here. And from this spot, you can cover the hill, but you can also quickly move to cover the town. So these are basically kind of hybrid spots that allow you to cover two of the lanes on Mines at once, as compared to just one, for that rock spot that I just showed. Now the next spot we're going to talk about is going to be this one. It's on the edge of the map. Basically the purpose of this spot is really to cover against people who are trying to rush down through this town area, or who are trying to flank your team underneath here. Obviously you cannot shoot the hill from this spot, but if like an enemy tank who's on the very center hill does make a dumb peek, you should be able to hit them. The other spot is just kind of this island area, so kind of like the rock that I was ripping on Bushka for humping in my FB 4005 video. You can go here. This spot has really one goal, and that's to cover this hill entrance. So if the enemy has hill control, you can play around this area and stop them from peeking that spot. Alternatively, you can, if you have like a medium or a light, you can sit in this bush and just watch and wait for anyone who's coming through the island. This will give your team some valuable spots as well. Now, aside from those defensive positions, the other spots you can play are on the hill, really. So you can play by this rock here, or you can play kind of by the hill entrance. These are really your best bets for playing around the hill area. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just sit there, hold down. I'm sure a lot of you already know how to do this sort of thing. And also, if the enemy's flanking through town, it's pretty simple to deal with them. You can just sit under the hill, and this is a pretty important position to be holding if the enemy is trying to flank you through town. Because if you sit underneath the hill here, then their teammates from the hill will not be able to do anything to support. However, the one thing that you absolutely should not do from the south spawn is play aggressive towards either the town area and to a lesser extent the island. But the area you really want to avoid is town. Now, all sorts of people just have, like all sorts of bad players, just have this misconception that if they just flank through town, they can win the game. But if they just took the time and they thought things through, they would kind of realize what really happens is, even if they manage to push through town, then they just get shot from multiple angles, and there's nothing that our team on the hill can do to support them. So you just lose your tank for free. Don't do it. Word of advice. If you're doing it, you're bad. And then for the island, like, you can push up here, but if you get caught, you're going to die pretty easily. You can get some nice cross shots, but this is more of a late game thing than anything. Don't do this for a mid game play, because again, if you get caught out here, it's not going to be pretty. And there's also not much your team can do to support you. Now, using this information, putting everything together into a comprehensive plan is pretty easy. You don't need to make plays, you don't need to do much. You just need to make sure that the north spawn has no openings. So if pretty much all the north spawn tanks are on the hill or in their spawn, then all you need to do is just set up some nice cozy bush here, here, or here. And if they try to push through the hill, just make sure that they're punished for it. Pretty simple. However, that's usually not the case, and usually some north spawn tanks will do something else. If they're pushing through town, if you want to defend against this, there's really two spots that you need to hold. You need to hold the area underneath the hill, You need to have someone up here in the spawn area defending against it. And basically, you just check where your teammates are. Make sure that if you have no one here, that you drive here, and if you have no one underneath the hill, then you drive here. And the reason why you want to do this is because if they push in, then it's really simple. You just shoot them from multiple angles. That flank will get shut down, no problem. There's nothing that the north spawn can really do about that if you hold those two positions. Now, alternatively, the third corridor that they can push through is the island. So if they're trying to do stuff on the island, then all you have to do is just make sure you're in a spot that properly defends the island. So basically, you just either sit here. Oh, that's the wrong color. You either sit here or you sit here. And if they try to do anything with the island, you have to make sure that this guy gets punished for it. And that's about it when it comes to mine south spawn. Just plug the holes, watch the lanes that they're trying to push, and as long as you hold the correct positions, there's nothing they can do. Now, the next spawn we're going to talk about is, of course, north spawn. And north spawn is primarily an offensive spawn because you do not have the luxury of having amazing positions to counter every enemy approach. So it's really up to you to make the plays necessary to win the game. And since it's a little more difficult to play and requires a little more thinking, it's also why people think that the north spawn is the less favored side. Although, in my opinion, I actually prefer playing from the north spawn, but I'll let you make your own decisions after watching this video. So considering that north spawn is more or less a purely offensive spawn, there's not really too many positions I need to go over, so let's just jump straight to the game plan. And starting in the early game, you don't really have too many options for north spawn. Most of your attention will have to be centered on the hill area, and the reason for this is if you lose this hill, it's pretty much over for you if you're north spawn. If you lose the hill, you don't have the same kind of amazing TD spots that the south spawn has to really shut that down. So as an early game play, there's 3 spots I'd like to go to. Number 1 is this rock outcropping here. This allows you to shoot anyone from the south spawn who goes right up onto the hill. Alternatively, you can drive to the hill by the hill entrance if you're like a heavy tank and you can brawl here. Or if you're feeling lucky, you can go straight onto the hill. Now, something I need to clear up is a lot of people go straight for the hill, but they don't really understand their purpose on the hill. And that's really something to keep in mind is, unlike old mines, the hill is this kind of main hill is no longer a position that you can use to deal tons of damage. No. The main purpose of this hill after the rework is to defend. It's a defensive position, really. As long as you control that central hill, the south spawn team will not be able to push through and kill everything on your side of the hill. That's why control of this hill is so important. You won't really be able to peek because if you try to peek, you're going to get shot by all sorts of nasty stuff, which is why you should generally keep your peeking to a minimum. But at the very least, holding the hill means that the enemy is pinned down. And that's what you need. You need to pin down the south spawn tanks in this area because if they're allowed to push up, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. Now, once your team has secure control of the hill and your team is not in danger of just being steamrolled on it, now you get to make some decisions. This is where the fun part of playing north spawn comes in. So as I mentioned earlier, Mines is a 3-lane map. You've got the island lane, the center lane, and the right lane. If the south spawn doesn't have many tanks holding the center, I mean, you can make a play for the hill and try and clear them out from there, but that's risky because there's so many spots in the enemy TD spots that you could just get shot to pieces and your game could be over pretty quickly, which means that you'll have to do something else. You'll have to either go for the island or go for the town. It's important to keep in mind that the south spawn team only has 7 tanks, so especially in pub matches, you'll almost always have one of these lanes open. It's really up to you to kind of guess or figure out which of these lanes you can take. And once you find an open spot, it's time to make a rotation. Now, option number 1 is to make your play through the town. The thing about town side is a lot of times the enemy's dumb and they'll send people here, which can make it kind of annoying and time consuming. And especially when you're playing from the north spawn, time is of the essence because, again, you cannot afford to lose this fight on the hill and your team might not have unlimited time. So generally you want to make your play quickly. But if you do decide to go through the town, then your first order of business is to make sure that there's no one sitting in their TD spot that's watching the town side. So if there's someone sitting here, if there's someone sitting right here, don't go through town. He's going to shoot you to pieces. your game will be over very quickly. However, if there's not someone sitting there, then you can make your play through town. So the first thing you're obviously going to have to do is you need to clear anyone who's in the town. This can usually be kind of messy, but there's a hold down spot on this corner that you can use to your advantage. But usually, again, you're looking for open lanes. So if there's too many tanks for you to deal with, don't go town. Now that said, once town is open, now you have to make the play. So something I see a lot of people do that's a common mistake is they'll push to right here underneath the hill. Don't do this, okay? This is how you die very quickly because all the enemy team has to do is just leisurely turn their tanks around and then just shoot you from multiple angles. They'll send you back to the garage pretty fast. There's nothing your team can do about it. Don't let your tank go to waste. Don't be dumb. Don't stop there. You have to go all the way to their spawn ramp that I've highlighted here. Because once you get on this spawn ramp, this is what really puts the enemy team in a problem. And this is because now you have hull down cover against these tanks that are on the south side spawn of the hill. And in conjunction with your tanks that are already on the hill, you can clear these guys out very quickly. Like, they'll just start falling like dominoes. The second you take this spot, they'll be turning turrets, and the enemy team will have a very difficult time trying to deal with you. If they turn their tanks around to deal with you, they get shot by your guys on the hill. And if they don't turn around to deal with you, well, then you have the easiest shots of your life, as you can see. So after you clear the south spawn side of the hill, the advantage of going through town that makes it somewhat better than island is that you have the advantage of also being able to clear the TDs really easily. Because you can just peek around this corner, light up their TDs, and your team can also still support you from the hill just as easily. Now the downside to pushing through town is that it's easier for the enemy team to counterattack you. These TDs can drive at you, and their heavy tanks can YOLO you, and it's a little easier for them to get away with it. But usually, if the North Spawn can get just one tank here, it's pretty much game over 9 times out of 10. So if you've gauged the situation and you've decided that pushing town is not an option, then your other option, of course, is to push island. So usually the deal breaker for island is if there's someone sitting in this spot here. You'll have to figure out some sort of way to get rid of him. Otherwise, it'll take some time and it could get messy. But if there's no one there, then happy days, because it means that island is now an option. Now, something I see a lot of North Spawn players do is they'll push to like right here and they'll just stay on this side, on this part of the island. Don't do it. It's not super helpful. I mean, it can be very annoying, but it also doesn't really win you the game. If you're going to go island, you got to go all out and just push onto their side of the island here. Take this corner, because once you take this corner, this sandbar, this provides you hull down cover. And this hull down cover means that just like pushing through town, it'll allow you to crossfire the enemy tanks that are underneath the hill in conjunction with your tanks that are on the hill. Once you take this island, the enemy position underneath the hill will, just like the town side, will pretty much usually collapse nearly instantly. It'll just be a domino effect because they cannot really turn to deal with both sides at once. And also, unlike the town side, the one advantage that pushing island has is, if they decide to counter push you and they try and dig you out, look at this open water that they have to cross. They have to go through all this area just to try and shoot you. And the reason why this is really bad for them is because your TDs can hit them going across the water, and of course you can shoot them from a hold down position. This will of course give you like multiple shots advantage on them if they try to dig you out of there, which is the nice part about pushing island from the north spawn. The disadvantage of going through the island is that it's more difficult to dig out their TDs because, as you can see, unlike the town side, you can't really shoot the TDs, which means that in order to actually deal with the enemy TDs, you're going to have to push generally to around this area, and then it can be kind of a bloody fight on this corner. And you kind of usually want to avoid that, but if you can just spot their TDs, then your tanks on the hill should usually let their presence be felt. And that's pretty much how you approach North Spawn on mines. It's pretty textbook. You just look for an open spot and then you make your play. So be it for the island or for kind of like this spawn ramp here. If you can just take one of those positions, it's game over about 90% of the time. Now, of course, all this is dependent on your team holding the hill, like kind of this area here, which is why if your team is not winning this hill fight, you just need to continue to commit here. And that'll be about it. Well, I hope that this video has been informative on teaching you guys how to play mines. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and bye.